Welcome to the Grappling Arts podcast, where we celebrate the art of professional wrestling, explore wrestling practice, and dig deep into wrestling's rich and varied history. Throughout the series, we will be interviewing leading figures from within independent professional wrestling. Topics will include theatre, sport, storytelling, and performance. If you enjoy the series, please subscribe and leave a review. I am your host, Sam West, co-owner of the independent wrestling promotion Wrestling Resurgence, which is a theatre-led wrestling company based in the East Midlands. You can also find me at Loughborough University, where I'm a doctoral researcher studying storytelling in professional wrestling. My expert co-host is Resurgence colour commentator Claire Warden, who is a senior lecturer in English and drama, also at Loughborough University. She's also the co-editor of the fantastic Performance and Professional Wrestling book. For more information about the podcast and Wrestling Resurgence, look us up on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Welcome to the fifth instalment of the Grappling Arts podcast. Our guest for this week is none other than former Wrestling Resurgence Champion, that damn dirty dog, Gene Munny. Over the course of this very digestible 90 minutes of conversation, we chat about Gene's run as Resurgence Champion and the evolution of the Gene Munny character. We also discuss playfulness, humour, comedy, and what it is that makes Munny one of the most beloved wrestling characters on the British indie scene today. So if you enjoy, please subscribe, please share, and thank you for listening.
Sam, guide us into podcasting.
Let's get cracking. Yeah,
sure.
Maybe,
let's go.
Given the circumstances, maybe this can bring a little bit of joy into some wrestling fans' lives.
So
thanks for agreeing to come on. Actually, well, no, thanks for requesting to come on the podcast and being the first
I listened
person
to other ones. I listened to other ones. And I thought, let's have a chat.
It's good to know that one person's listening to them.
No, it's been great. It's been really great.
Cool. Which ones did you listen to?
I listened to the one with Chevs. That was the one that kind of kicked me off.
Yeah, that was a strong one, I think.
Yeah. So don't expect that from this listeners.
Yeah, it's always good to lower expectations, isn't it?
That's it. That was 3 good episodes, and then you start to dip a bit, and that's how you podcasting.
Yeah.
No, never.
Yeah. So I was thinking maybe we could start by having a little bit of a chat about your relationship to Resurgence, I guess, because you've been such a kind of staple of all of Resurgence, really, but particularly last year, throughout the course of last year. So I was thinking maybe we could have a chat about the Loughborough show where you actually won the title. To start with, and then start with that, and then we'll sort of track back a little bit through your kind of wrestling biography and talk about some of the things that make Gene Munny Gene Munny.
Sure, absolutely.
So, yeah, do you want to talk us through that? What it was like? So for people that aren't familiar with the kind of Resurgence story arcs and things like that, the show was in Loughborough in June.
So I was Gene Munny. I just come off a big win. And I'd gone into a title match with Jack Sexsmith, and that had led into a screwy finish. It was supposed to be me v Sexsmith for the championship, but obviously he blew his knee out. So it was me versus insert competitor here for the championship. It was Spike, who I've never actually worked Spike one-on-one before until this moment. And if I have, I'm completely forgetting about it. But this was I was really excited for it because we're 2 people with very eager minds when it comes to wrestling and things along those lines. But I've never been in this situation before. And, I'm going to break all of the kayfabes and stuff like that right now. But I walked into that building not knowing who was going to win that match. And when I was chatting with you guys didn't know who was winning that match, and Spike didn't know who was winning that match. So I actually walked into that match assuming it was just going to get called by a referee at some point. Oh, this has changed. Oh, this has changed. I didn't have a clue.
No one
and
did.
so, well, that was it. Like, it kind of made it, I feel a bit more real to me, because I'd never won a singles championship in wrestling before that moment. I think I'd won a tag belt on a company that got shut down the day I won it. So, but yeah, like, it was a big moment for me. I was really excited. Just to have that match in the main event. It'd be my second main event for Resurgence, and I think early 2019 was kind of the start of me getting any sort of notice by anyone. And so that was kind of like that culminating moment where it felt like that was I was pulling the trigger on Gene Munny a bit, and I'm forever indebted to Resurgence for that. I hate to break his mean guy image, but Spike was one of the people who said maybe this should be the Gene Munny Championship. There was a huge discussion about what was actually going to happen, and winning that championship match against Spike, culminating my storyline of never being able to get like that big one against Sexsmith, and his storyline of constantly pissing off Cara. It was kind of like, it was a really beautiful moment, and like the crowd were on their feet at the end when obviously the lights went out and he was in the ring after he'd screwed me out and tried to beat me with a belt shot. And it was my dinner is beeping behind me. I'll finish off this sentence. And it was really fun. I'm one of these people, I don't have that much. You wouldn't think it by the way I wrestle, but I don't have that much regard for my body. I remember being in that match and just saying to Spike backstage, right, let's not have the bell ring. We'll keep scrapping and everything like this, but I'm going to just dive out of the ring at you. But because the bell hasn't rung, twat me with a chair in midair. I thought it was a great spot. And in my head, I thought it was a great spot until I left the ring and I was midair and I was diving out. And then my brain just went, well, if you're blocking the chair shot with your hands, what are you breaking your fall with? And at that moment, it was my head. And so it was fun. Actually, no, I completely forgot. I had a terrifying moment at the start of that match. Spike jumps me right at the start, and I don't know what it was. Like, I felt like I lost all feeling in my legs at the start. I don't think I told any of you guys this at the time. I mean, I told the medics and that stuff at the end, but I just couldn't move my leg properly. It wasn't working after it hit me and I went down. And I was like, oh no, this is the worst time for all of this. And then it just turned out I'd got my knee pad stuck in part of the stage. And I just pulled it out and that was it. I thought I couldn't move my leg, but it was just trapped. But it was just a real good time in there to get, again, Spike's one of these people who thinks differently to a lot of wrestlers. He's got again, I don't want to break any of the mold too much, but he's got an acting background and you can really see that creative performer in him when you're in a ring with him. And I'd relish the opportunity to do something like that again.
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting things there. Character, and then also the kind of storytelling process that went into that through Resurgence, that not necessarily knowing who was going to win and what the outcome was going to be on the night. People tend to like look at wrestling booking, and fans will kind of uphold things like long-term storytelling. It's quite highly praised, this idea of long-term storytelling. But I don't think what people realize, especially with the indies, is how much of that story is sort of chopped and changed as it goes along because of the different circumstances. And there's a lot of spontaneity, isn't there? Right?
Agreed. And I think with British wrestling, because we don't have the luxury of like televised wrestling, where what Resurgence at the time was having a show every other month, you've got to squeeze that storytelling into your match. Like me and Sexsmith told a good story in our match and it was supposed to be the culmination of that. But obviously that got changed. So you've kind of got to create a story on the fly with someone new. And storytelling is what I love. Like, I don't think the best matches in the world are the ones that have got the coolest moves and the biggest kickouts. To me, my favorite wrestling matches are the ones that have told that story, so that you actually buy into something, so that when that one big moment happens, it means a lot more.
There's something about that's like spontaneous storytelling as well. Like, that's really exciting. I think it sounds right. Like, you know, wrestling's often praised as being kind of long form storytelling, which of course it is, and it works really, really well for that. But I have to say, some of the kind of highlight moments of me from Resurgence, but also I think just like from wrestling, are those kind of or what they feel like quite spontaneous moments, like a little turn or like a little, they went in a slightly different direction or something. It has a kind of energy to it, I think, when things are, maybe it's just like in my head this is existing, but I always feel like there's a real energy to it when, like, you know, when we have a kind of meeting before a Resurgence show, and there's a kind of discussion with the wrestlers and with everyone about, like, well, what's happening tonight, do you think, with this match, which I find that super exciting. Like, it has a real kind of energy about it, which is cool.
And I don't disagree with that, but I'm sure some other people would, and that's what I love about wrestling, is that it can, the storytelling and the energy may be different to different people. Now, one of the things I've really, the one thing I've really liked about Wrestling Resurgence, yet at the same time, it's caused a bit of friction, is the fact that the people who book Resurgence aren't wrestlers, and they haven't been wrestlers, and it also brings in a fresh take, which is really nice. Like, I wouldn't have booked me as a champion, basically, but like, because wrestlers are known to fall into tropes and things like that, and no matter how revolutionary a wrestling company can be, it's still wrestler A v wrestler B trying to get the win most of the time. But with so many, you know, fresh faces to the wrestling scene with Wrestling Resurgence, they are doing fresh things. Oh, sorry, my dog's wolfing in the back. It's one of these things where it's quite fresh and quite, you know. I'll be back in a second. Okay. Come here. You woof him. You woof him. Is it fireworks? Knock it off. Come on.
This is podcast gold. This is.
I know, right? Wonderful. Yeah, bonfire night around the corner and a loud dog is not a good combo. It's really nice to get those fresh ideas, and you're getting booked into things that you wouldn't expect to be booked in, because you know the tropes and you guys weren't following the tropes because you hadn't been booked in these situations before. Sometimes that meant maybe it didn't make as much sense to some of the wrestlers. I know some of the plans that were discussed when I did win the Resurgence Championship may not have been as whatever as they were, kind of thing. I remember there was an idea against me versus all of Sanitarium at one bit. There was different ideas planned at different areas, but it was one of those it's one of those things where it helps because you've got that freshness, but you also are a really good place for wrestlers to work. So you could have honest and frank discussions with your performers and find out what would make sense, not just storyline wise, but for their character wise as well. There has been so many times as Gene Munny, I get booked into things that frankly Gene Munny wouldn't do. And when you're trying to build your own brands, I'm trying to build my brand as Gene Munny, it's as simple as that. And through my storytelling or through my wrestling or whatever, I simply say to promoters, here is my brand, pay me to use it, please. And often they will do what they want with it. Whether it improves my brand or not, that is up to them. I am trusting the promotion with my brand. But fortunately with you guys, sorry, go ahead.
One of the things that, if we start to kind of look back then on your kind of career and the development of the Gene Munny character, and also that, you know, that spontaneity in storytelling, how important is it as an independent wrestler to create your own stories, to create opportunities for yourself within companies? And, you know, how conscious are you in terms of choosing companies to work with? Because you're actually thinking back, you were, I think, the first wrestler that approached us that we hadn't seen live ourselves that we booked.
Okay.
It was on the strength of your, because you essentially you told us about the Gene Munny character, and Gene Munny would be great for Resurgence. And
Yeah,
so I wonder,
so
if you just talk into that a bit.
Yeah, for me, it was the case of I didn't used to be picky with wrestling bookings at all. I would go for whoever would book me. I'm not someone who cares about winning or losing or anything along those lines, because I feel that, frankly, I feel there is more money in Gene Munny in the chase, him pursuing something than something him actually achieving. I think I can get more entertainment value out of a loss than a win sometimes. But for me, I didn't take my brand seriously until last year. Again, 2019 was that kind of year for me. Maybe like April onwards. I didn't know what Gene Munny was, and it's very hard to protect a brand if you don't actually know what it is. So I kind of developed that over the last year or so. And it was the case of promoters. If promoters want to bring me in for a single match, that's absolutely fine. Like I'm good for that. My aim is to not wrestle that. I'm not wrestling for that match. I'm wrestling for the match after it. I'm trying to get myself return bookings. I'm trying to get myself a bit of brand retention there. But it's when you're just getting booked for single matches, it's fine. But when you try and get booked for storylines and things like that, it's tough, because you say, "Oh, can you do this?" And at the start, when you're an absolute no one, it's very difficult to say, "I really wouldn't do that." I don't care if I win. I don't care if I lose, but I wouldn't do that in particular. And sometimes you have that discussion, and sometimes, some promoters have egos and they want things their way. And at the end of the day, they're the people who are paying for it. So what right do I have? But at the same time, I'm looking out for me and my future as Gene Munny. And I know I'm very fortunate to have an interchangeable brand. I've been the Mundertaker. I'm a detective at Attack Pro Wrestling. I was a Ghostbuster at Riptide and a Genie at Riptide last year. I've been a clown. I've been Eugene Munn. I'm a member of the Anti-Fun Police. Like, I've been fortunate last year alone to have 8 different gimmicks. All of them are me in my actions, the way I speak, the way I move. All of it is still me, and I'm still doing Gene Munny things, regardless of what clothes I'm wearing.
One of the things we started to talk about on the last episode with Debbie Keitel was this idea of a character in a movie. So companies like Resurgence thinking about casting characters in roles. And what do you think it is about Gene Munny? Because I see Gene Munny as one of these type of characters where you can as a promoter, you can look at Gene Munny and go, wow, there's so many different possibilities with a character like that. So, like, what do you think? Where does the Gene Munny character come from, and what do you think makes it so, I don't know, appealing in that way in terms of storytelling?
I think from the outside looking in, it's very difficult to see what makes Gene Munny appealing. Like, he's a portly lad who looks like he's fallen out of a fancy dress closet, and it's just, what does he bring to the table? And I completely understand that. I can understand why people don't get Gene Munny. Because I understand exactly what you mean about casting, and that's how I look at all of wrestling. It's like, I'm not an actor, and I never have been, but it's the case of WWE have only got a certain amount of leading roles, and that's okay. Sometimes you wish maybe they'd kill a character off sometimes, which happens in TV. But they won't, because they understand what's got money and things like that. There's only certain roles for leading, there's only certain space for leading characters. You can get all different storylines over there and things like that. And I think with Gene Munny is that he stands out movement-wise, physicality-wise, looks-wise so much that he can really fit into anywhere on a card and appear different. I think I have marketed Gene Munny to be, to be able to be fit anywhere on a card, win or loss, and I can still make an impact. I'm very fortunate that you guys gave me that main event spot, and I'm very thankful for that. But it's yeah, I see why people don't get me, because the only people who seem to get me are the people who have watched me in a match or people who have wrestled me. I am, much like most physical comedy, I am not about the wrestling. I am about the reaction to the wrestling. That's where my entertainment comes in. It's not the doing stuff. It's how I react to the stuff. That's where all my comedy comes from. I don't go out there to try and make people laugh through an action. I try to make them laugh or cheer based on my reaction to said action. And I think that's where I differ from a number of performers. I'm not saying I do it great. I still need a lot to work on. But I like being a bit of a wrestling anomaly. I like taking things that people aren't doing and turning it into something a bit more marketable. The nipple tape was literally, it was a 6-man tag match at Good Wrestling. It was me, Chris Brooks, and Millie McKenzie versus Wild Boar, Mike Bird, and Big Grizzly. And I was putting my tape on, and I just, as a joke, put it across my nipples, and I looked in the mirror and thought, no, I'm going to do that. I'm absolutely going to do that. My original wrestling coat, the gold one with the fur, that was just made from bits I had in my wardrobe, and I just stitched it together, and there it was. It was an, it was an outfit. I looked at my dog, and he was covered in fox shit, and I called him a damn dirty dog. And I thought, that is a really good nickname. And then I thought, no one's really doing any. I mean, I don't do an animal gimmick. I just go by animal name, and I wear, dog paraphernalia, let's call it. But I thought no one else is kind of doing that. No one's giving themselves that kind of moniker. Why not? You got Lycos as a wolf. Other than that, there was nothing. And so I thought, well, let's just do that. Let's be the damn dirty dog. Let's get a fur coat. Let's get a dog collar. Why do I have a captain's hat? Still not sure, but it's there.
I love that. I love that, like, creativity, that sense of like kind of spontaneous creativity that so I think often you feel like wrestlers are kind of in their gimmicks are very, I put kind of, well, I'm going to say a lot of thought into it. I'm not suggesting you not put a lot of thought into it, but like kind of very deliberate in their gimmick, and everything is really deliberate. Whereas the Gene Munny character, one of its most endearing facets for me is kind of the way that it's not deliberate in that way, that like kind of it's slightly anarchic, slightly kind of chaotic, kind of creative. And I think that's why in essence you fit into the Resurgence. Yeah.
You are 100% correct. Every time I try to deeply think, every time I try to clear my head and think, what can I do? When I design anything for Gene Munny, like I'm trying to design a coat, and I've designed my new gear and things like that. But when I try actively to think, what would Gene Munny do here? I can't do it. I think it's because I'm too precious with who Gene is and things like that. And I think, oh, if I do this, maybe people will think that. Oh, if I'm too physical, maybe I'm not funny enough. Or I've got this idea for a move. Would Gene do that, this, that, and the other? Most things come to me on the fly. And if they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. And I've been fortunate enough that I've got a lot of new bits that I've picked up that have worked because I've stumbled upon them rather than I've actually thought about them. And I think that kind of sums me up as a human being outside of wrestling. I am, to say I'm a relatively educated man, I'm a bumbling idiot. I fall from life moment to life moment. I try to prepare myself for absolutely everything, but there's so much that's happened in my life that has been unpreparable for that. Like, I just bumble about and things seem to happen to me. And I think that's a really good way to describe Gene Munny. Things just seem to happen to him.
Do you have any kind of just delving a little bit more into your background? Do you have a kind of performance background outside of wrestling? You seem like a very natural performer.
I'd say as a child, I was a big old drama queen. Not in drama at all, but just I've always had that kind of showmanship about me. I was in musical theatre when I was a teenager, really enjoyed it. But it never led to anything because at the time, and still partially now, I had a natural flamboyancy for things like that, but I could not be asked to do anything about it. And that was me in wrestling for like the first however many years of my career until like I've said it before. I got to a very bleak moment in my life. I got to times where I was taking long walks down roads I shouldn't be. And it came to that point where I was like, you really love wrestling. So how about you consider doing something you enjoy with your life rather than being in a place you don't want to live and not doing what you're enjoying. So I put all of my time and my effort into wrestling. I went part-time with my job. I sacked off my own business and I just focused on it. And it turns out when you apply yourself to something, you do really well in it. Who would have thought? And yeah, maybe I would have gone into musical theatre a bit more if I could be asked as a kid. And it does suck that I didn't get my mojo into wrestling until I was almost 30, and that's that hurts. But it is what it is, and you fall from opportunity to opportunity, and you just work hard in between that.
So sort of drawing on a few of those things that you've mentioned, and something that you said earlier about some people not getting Gene Munny. I wonder. So for me, Gene Munny kind of feels like a wrestler that works at this very moment. Like he feels, yes, he's a kind of a throwback in a way, but there's something very, very contemporary about him. And I think his appeal is something that kind of could only work in this moment of wrestling. So the success that you've had with Resurgence, with Good, with Schadenfreude and Friends, Attack, it feels like without those type of companies, I'm not sure where Gene would kind of fit necessarily in the scene. Not that he doesn't work in other companies, but it just feels like some of those companies are so perfect for Gene, and the audience are kind of the audience for Gene in a way. I don't wonder whether any of that sort of sits with you.
So for me, I didn't get kind of any exposure in that until I started working for Good. I only got the one booking, didn't expect anything else. I had a singles match. I opened a match. I was garish. That's when I didn't really know what Gene Munny was. I was, I think I won with a reversal of a crossbody, like something I probably wouldn't do these days. But it was, I was a villain. And I think being a villain at Good Wrestling, when they were just a small little promotion and they gave me opportunities to dick about. I got to work with the likes of Chris Brooks early on in the Gene Munny kind of gimmick. I worked with Big Grizzly a lot, Eddie Dennis at Good. I was always the villain, and I always got mic time, and it gave me the ability to see what got reactions. And it turns out most of my reactions was comedy. I'd get booed, I'd get hated. I had that kind of funny edge to me. And that worked. That really worked for turning Gene Munny into a good guy, because he was garish enough that, people don't take him seriously enough. I'd back it up in the ring, this, that, and the other. I'd usually cheat. But it was, you kind of get that kind of, this is what people don't like. So you can automatically work out what people will like and still gain those kind of reactions. So with the more adult crowds like Good and Attack, like you mentioned, and Schadenfreude and Friends, I watched my first Schadenfreude and Friends match, the Banda match, and I'm a completely different performer now to what I was then, because I was still in my head about what Gene Munny was or wasn't. And yeah, I think you get more confident about that the more times you do stupid things. But I think, as I mentioned before, I did 8 gimmicks last year. You automatically don't know what you're getting with me. It feels like Gene Munny is the ribbons coming out of the magician's sleeve. You don't know when it's going to end. I've got 1,000 ideas in my head that I've yet to use, kind of thing. And I think it brings a certain excitement of you not sure what's going to happen. It is that kind of explosive, accidental nature of the character. The fact that he's bumbling is quite endearing. He's a try-hard at the end of the day. He's got the kind of similar vibes to Orange Cassidy, but Whereas Orange Cassidy doesn't try. That's all Gene wants to do. Gene just wants to do a good job, and he fucks it up a lot. And I think that's so human. I was listening to an interview with Sasha Banks recently, and she said she was the best. And automatically, I don't like her, because if she's the best, what is the point cheering for her? Because she's always going to win. That's why I've never been able to associate to the mega good guys in wrestling, the supermen of wrestling, like the John Cena era, the Roman Reigns era, Charlotte Flair, and things like that. Because at least with Triple H, when he had his reign of terror, he was a villain, and he could cheat people out of it because he wasn't the best. Whereas if you've got a character who is the best constantly, why should I care? Because they're going to win, and I'm never going to believe that they're in peril. But with Gene Munny, you've got that he's constantly in peril because he's a fucking idiot. And I do think that is, it is human and it is endearing, because as wild as Gene Munny is, he's relatable. And I think that is probably one of the most marketable things about him.
And you always, I think with Gene, one of the things that kind of struck me just sort of rewatching some of the matches you sent through and things like that is that, like, Gene does have that kind of bumbling fool feeling about him, but at the same time, like, he'll suddenly kind of do something, you think, oh my goodness, he's like wrestling, he's like properly wrestling. And so I think there's like always that, like that kind of always kind of creeps out for me in the Gene Munny character. Like suddenly there'll be some, and you'll think, man, he's on the top rope about to do something like incredibly athletic. And I think that in essence, that has that brings another side to this character in some way. Yes, the bumbling fool, but actually also really good wrestler. And so actually there is that little potential moment to think, oh, you might actually beat this guy who is taller or like more athletic or whatever it might be than you, because of kind of heart, but also because you've got this moment where you could just turn it and do something kind of quite a strong move against someone. So there's always that sort of potential as well. So that's why I feel like cheering for you, because I don't feel like you're a lost cause right the way through your matches. I think that's probably true for a lot of people in the Resurgence crowd. We're not like, oh, poor Gene. You're like, yeah, okay, Gene is this kind of like silly comedic character, but man, like he can come back and totally hit you with something. So you keep cheering for him, thinking that's going to come.
And that's my biggest positive and negative in this industry, I believe, because however long I've been doing this, before I put my heart and soul into actually doing this, I have pigeonholed myself as, why should anyone care about this guy? He's just a comedy guy. No one should take him seriously. And right now, that still hinders me a lot, because people who don't watch me wrestle, people who just know the name, people who may have just seen a gif of me getting my arse out, don't get that. And so I will always be pigeonholed as this underdog. But it works in my favor, because now, for me, a 5-star match doesn't have to mean me doing everything under the sun. It's just doing a couple of bits here and there that people don't expect. And the fact is, I have been training. I still train as a professional wrestler. I have been doing this for almost a decade, which may surprise people, but it's like, I still train. I'm still a very good professional wrestler at the end of the day. I know I'm just seen as a comedy guy, but that's because that's how I've decided to pigeonhole myself. And the past 2 years of me just trying to prove I am more than that, not just as Gene, but as me as a person outside of the ring as well. And yes, I'm annoyed with myself that I've not given it all before these moments. And yes, I still get seen by a lot of people as just a comedy guy, but that really works in my favor sometimes as well, because I've automatically got the underdog thing for me, which is great. But this was one of the things that it's one of the things that not bothered me at Resurgence, but when I had the championship, I defeated Gabriel Kidd at a kind of a one-off show in Sheffield. I defeated Chris Brooks. I defeated Rampage Brown. And yet I was still seen as the underdog. And that shouldn't make sense. I have the championship. Technically, I am, by definition of being the champion, I am the best Resurgence has to offer. I have beat some of the best in the country, and yet people still doubted me. That's my own fault for what I've been doing for the last decade. And I need to change that. I need to be seen as a force. At the same time, I know how valuable it is as a performer to be fighting upwards rather than fighting down, especially when you're a babyface, a good guy.
Yeah, and I think that match that you sent through, the one where you were fighting against Chris Brooks, that my abiding memory of that match was like, I mean, this is going to sound like a weird sentence. I might almost check myself then, but like, was your chest.
Yes.
So like, because I remember you coming up and seeing you afterwards and being like, oh my goodness, like I don't think I'd ever seen. You know, you talk about it's like not being wrestlers, and you're absolutely right. Like, we actually had this conversation with Mike Bird in the first podcast where we talked about kind of the chops and what's the point of chops, and this was another moment which kind of I was like, oh yeah, of course, because it's about how much punishment you can take and still stand and still carry on and still push forward, and like that's remained kind of etched on my brain after that match, just like super red raw. You can see it in the match, but it just looked horrendous on the night, and like that Gene Munny is there to take and will take a beating and yet still come out on top because he can still come back. You just have that's a really excellent story in that match, I think.
The thing with chops, I mean, Chris says my chest has good acoustics. You know, he's got long hands, and apparently the noise off my chest is great. I don't think that's a good enough excuse to make me bleed, but here we are. He's in Japan winning championships. I'm here. It's for me, yeah. Chops are chops are good when they're needed and often wasted. For me, a chop in a story is like, I don't believe in strong style sometimes. I don't believe in trade-offs as well sometimes. Like, you hit me and then I'll be like, come on, you take a shot at me. Because if this is wrestling and we want to win a match, just punch the guy in the face. Chops are one of these things that they do take the breath out of you, and they do sting. Like, if anyone's had sunburn and someone slapped you, it's like that, but like 5 times. And you're never going to win a match with a chop unless you're Walter. But like, you're never going to win a match with a chop. But wrestling's also about the reactions, and the reactions people gave at my chest, you know, it was worth all that pain. And yes, my chest was bleeding, and yes, Joey Janela opened up all of those wounds 3 days later, and there was blood everywhere. But a bit of Savlon fixes that, and I'm not going to hurt my back. I'm not going to hurt my neck with a chop. They're very safe. They make some noise. They sting. But it automatically shows that physical dissection of someone in a match. And as soon as you actually get that cut of the chop on your chest, it actually brings about physical pain, because there are a lot of things in wrestling that, let's face it, look rubbish. And people go, that doesn't look like it's hurt. But when you can see the physical impact of something, it brings a whole new dimension to wrestling. You know, this isn't just 2 actors going through a fight scene. This is real. That is my skin that is being flayed by a palm. Like, it brings about that sense of realism. And yes, you're never going to win a match with a chop. Yes, that's never going to actually finish someone. And yet, it is the one thing in the match that is showing physical pain to the audience without my body or face having to tell that story. And yeah, it sucked. They were really smelly chops.
Yeah.
And I love that. Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, I was just going to stay on that match because it kind of felt like it was a pivotal night for many reasons for Resurgence. But it was also in part because of the Gene Munny character really kind of came into its own in Resurgence at that point, because it was the first match at Resurgence since you'd won the title.
Sure.
The title win we've already discussed, was a kind of a moment that I don't think everyone in the audience was expecting. There was definitely a kind of shock factor. I remember being on the balcony and Gabriel Kidd sat in front of me where I was at the tech position, and he just jumped out of his chair when he won, took his shirt off and started swinging his shirt around his head. And that was everyone, because no one knew who was going to win on the balcony, and Claire on commentary didn't know who was going to win.
No.
I don't think
in
there
the
was
ring,
that many people.
we didn't know who was going to win. We thought it was
you
going
can
to
see
get
it in the
changed on the
audience.
fly.
When you rewatch it, there's some great clips of the audience going and then standing up. Like, there's that sort of pause of like, is he actually just done it? And but then when you came back to Attenborough Centre, obviously very small, intimate venue, but the kind of home of Resurgence. I remember seeing Gene Munny. I think it was the night that you had the flags, maybe, There were G Money flags. There were people wearing sailors the hats. I think he was selling still at that point.
I don't think the flags would have been there, but
I remember hats.
Yeah, I had my hats and I had a few other bits and bobs. Yeah.
No, it was was it the Ready Steady Cook signs?
I had my red
tomato and green peppers.
Yeah, I just
the other thing I remember as well, which is kind of what I'm trying to get to, is that there was that moment when you came back to Resurgence, the first show back as the champion, where you could see Gene Money fans, and particularly like younger fans. So I remember there was quite a few images of a family that come to all of the Resurgence shows, and two kids who were probably maybe 7 or 8, both with Gene Money t-shirts, and there was a picture of you with them with the championship, and they were both wearing Gene Money t-shirts. So I wondered, like, if you could talk a little bit into that, like being popular, having, say, younger fans in particular at Resurgence looking up to you, because it felt like you were the kind of face of the company at that point, and a worthy champion, if you know what I mean.
It's nice. I mean, outside of wrestling, I'm quite a insecure person, and I don't see myself as a hero or anything like that. So when I'm Gene, it's really quite nice to have people looking up to this bumbling oaf who's seemed to achieve things. My goal when I wrestled on mainly family shows is I wrestle to entertain. I wrestle for the dads in the crowd, frankly, because the kids are going to enjoy wrestling because it's wrestling. The mums are, I'm going to be very gender normative here, and I apologize, but the mums are happy that the kids are happy. A lot of the dads, because it's on Saturday afternoons at like family after shows, probably would be happier watching the football, but they're there with the kids and they don't like wrestling and they know it's fake and they're like, that doesn't hurt. But if you can entertain the dads, then they're more likely to come back. They're more likely to buy tickets. And more importantly for me, they're happier for their kids to buy my merch because I've entertained them. And that's kind of the family element I go to. Of course, I'm going to wrestle for kids when there are kids there. You say something funny that's not, too niche but not rude or anything like that. And, I get hit in the back and I'll go, it's my favorite spine. And the kids laugh at that because they'll go, and they'll go, he's only got one spine. That's why it's his favorite one. And, daft stuff that I do in my match that, Gene is a big kid. And so I think he's having fun and people can see him having fun. Not when Chris Brooks is chopping the hell out of him, but the rest of the time he's having fun. At the start of the match, he's smiling. He's getting people into it. And you can see Gene Money's having a good time because, frankly, I'm having the time of my life. Doesn't matter what match I'm in. I'm having a great time as a human being because this is what I love doing. And I think kids can see someone smile, someone who's not super serious from the get-go. There's a reason you're not seeing kids at UFC fights. It's like I'm going in there with a smile on my face, genuinely wanting to lock up with someone and have a good time. And, happiness builds happiness around people. And I think the fact is because Gene is this bumbling idiot, he also seems harmless. And so he's a guy who can beat someone up and also be non-threatening. He's just a tryhard. I think that's a good thing to look up to. I think if I was a kid, I'd look up to someone like Gene, like, this fat lad can achieve his dreams. I can do anything.
I think there's also something of like the children's TV presenter about Gene a little bit, like that 100%. Sort of like lots of colors and talking like in kind of a fun kind of chatty comedic sort of a way. Like it kind of I often think kind of I think you'd be really good on CBBS. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but like you'd be so good. You should like just tell stories to small people. I think they'd love it. So
I mean, just look at any kid or baby toy. All it is colors and noise, and that's all Gene is.
I think there's actually something that this kind of leads into another thing that I was interested in is comedy, but also like, do you have kind of comedy influences? And I'm also thinking of that kind of quite childish, but also childish but good comedy. So what would be a good example? So like Vic and Bob, like I remember watching Shooting Stars when I was 10, 11, like, and Gene really, there's something very British about Gene and fitting into that sort of comedy style, that sort of surreal, very physical kind of slapstick comedy. Is that something that you think about a lot? Or?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Vic and Bob, back from, Vic Rue's Night Out, Shooting Stars, to House of Fools, to even Bob Mortimer's podcast, Athletic Omens. I love the zaniness, the characters, the fact that they're getting reactions out of stupid things just due to the delivery of them. And yeah, just being able to hear that laugh from something so simple or something so stupid. It doesn't matter if it doesn't 100% make sense. It doesn't matter if it's a non sequitur. If it's delivered with such kind of emphasis or stupidity, people laugh. I remember wrestling Martina up in Discovery in Edinburgh, and we had this whole dick about match. We ended up fighting to the backstage and then coming out in each other's gear when we came fighting back into the ring. Like, there was a lot of stupid things. So at the start of the match, I said that I have been to the future and I've seen exactly how this match ends. I've been doing some Darren Brown stuff. I know exactly how this match ends. I'm going to write it on this piece of paper and I'm going to put it in this envelope. And I want all of you, I am that confident that this is how I'm going to win. I want all of you to keep your eyes on this piece of paper. Anyway, I hit her with a big lariat at the end of the match. 1, 2, she kicks out. I G up another one. No, point to the piece of paper, get to the envelope. I pass it to someone in the crowd. I get the announcer to go down and put the microphone next to him. I'm G'ing up this lariat. I say, read it, tell everyone. And this guy in the crowd says, Gene Munny gets distracted by the audience and takes a DDT from Martina. I'm like, well, that's not what I said. Turn around, DDT, 1, 2, 3. Stupid moment. And I remember Jordan Devlin was backstage. He's just had an incredible match because he's an incredible athlete. And I said, Jordan, do you have any feedback for that? And he was like, I don't really like comedy. It was funny and things like that. But he said you should always look as if you are trying to win a match, even when you're doing comedy. And so I did take that on board quite a lot. So every time I do comedy now, I try to do it in the same way that a Mike Tyson, a Prince Nazim, Muhammad Ali, like, they took their time and they could showboat a lot because they were so good. And when you think about it in that area, like, Gene Munny can dick about because he's got the self-confidence in him that he believes he can get the job done and he can still have a good time in the process. He is willing to enjoy himself because he's that confident or maybe arrogant that he believes he can still win the match. And then when I told this theory to Chris Brooks, he said, no, just do stuff. And it changed my mind again. And now it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense sometimes. It doesn't matter. If people are reacting, then who cares? So that's my version on comedy wrestling. It's like, so long as I'm getting that reaction, if it's the reaction I'm looking for at least, then brilliant. I'm doing my job right. And I don't want to be seen as a comedy wrestler. I just want to be seen as a wrestler who happens to be funny. People like Trent Seven have pulled that off. Like, Trent Seven has won world championships in different promotions. He is seen as a very good wrestler. But at the same time, he doesn't need to be that, main event wrestler every single night because his character can carry him. And that's where I want to be with Gene. I want Gene to be a world championship wrestler, worthy wrestler. But his character can carry him if he's not in the championship picture.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm glad that Chris Brooks gave you the reprieve on that one because I was thinking that in my head. I was like, I'm not sure I agree with Jordan Devlin on that one. So I'm grateful for Chris for bringing that up. How one of the things that strikes me when you're talking is the joy of your own of amusing yourself in performance. And this is again maybe another connection with Vic with one of the things I love about Vic Reeves is that it's always like he's saying something that he finds funny. Like it's not a joke for the audience. He's just amusing himself.
Yes.
And there's a little bit of that kind of playfulness, I think, in the Gene character. Maybe is that something that you think?
I am someone who will just think of things. I am someone who will just think of things at home and laugh to myself because it's amused me. Like that kind of comedy is my life force, really. My wife will come downstairs and I'm singing a comedy song I've just made up to the cat. Like I don't. There's no off switch on me. I will just come up with really bad jokes. I will do really stupid things because I need to keep myself amused. I am a child like that. I need this constant giggle. And yeah, it's going to sound really ego, but I can watch one of my matches back and go, that was really funny. And I'm proud. I mean, I am proud about that. The fact I can make myself laugh. And sometimes I don't care if the audience haven't got it. I think if I do it with conviction and I can show that I'm enjoying it, people are going to laugh along. And it is that kind of Vic Reeves, Bob Mortimer thing. On Bob's podcast, like, he will say something that maybe won't be that funny, but the fact is he will laugh so much at trying to get a sentence out that I am already giggling at the fact that he's saying something that he thinks is so funny that one of my comedy icons can't stop laughing. And I think that's just, again, it's just very human. I think unless you've not got a sense of humor, then yeah, but if you've not got a sense of humor, why are you interested in wrestling?
I think it brings an authenticity to Gene's character as well, that like, you know, you always get the sense that like you're not kind of just performing comedy because that's what you think you should do, or like because you just want to really entertain everyone. Like you're just like laughing. And I think that you know, we often talk about authenticity in wrestling, and actually some, you know, all the best wrestling to me has an authenticity about it that can of course take different angles and depending on the characters and stuff, but because I'm thoroughly convinced that Gene finds himself hilarious all the time, and so I find Gene hilarious as well because we're all laughing together, whereas I think if you were like kind of clearly performing that hilarity as opposed to actually being that hilarity, I'm not sure I would be as convinced by it. I'm not sure I would find it as funny maybe.
This is why I hate. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that on the comedy wrestling stuff, picking up on Claire's point, when I started going to shows with Pete, who didn't really have like a massive wrestling fandom. Pete's obviously one of the Resurgence team. He said, "Oh, I just don't like comedy wrestling." And I was like, "Well, it's not that you don't like comedy wrestling. It's just you haven't found a funny wrestler yet. Like." It's not comedy, you know. Does that? I think that sort of speaks to what Claire was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, yeah, I think my sorry, I'm just grabbing my dinner. Yeah, I think for me, comedy it's difficult. It's not for everyone. There are a lot of wrestlers who try to go out there and be funny, but they get the giggles because of their popularity, and people can see they're trying to be funny. That bothers me a bit, but for me, I despise being put in a match with another comedy wrestler and the promoter says, go out there, be funny, because there is nothing worse for me than being told I have to be funny, because as soon as that happens, my mind goes blank. If I am forced to have a good time, I am not going to have a good time, and I'll find it very difficult. And so if I'm in a mood backstage, like if I'm in a grumpy day, because we all get grumpy sometimes, but like if I'm having a grumpy day and I'm asked to be funny, you're going to get pretend Gene Munny out there. And it's not until I start enjoying myself backstage that we come up with absolutely anything. And as soon as I get one idea, that spurs my, you know, that happiness and that comedy inside me. And then ideas can come more fluidly. Like my second to last match before lockdown was me v Rishi Ghosh. Another wrestler who is predominantly comedy. The fact is, Rishi can go. Rishi is very good at what he does. I'd never worked him before, and we had the, you know, instruction, do a comedy match. And I was so grumpy. I was so miserable. Here's a guy I've never worked before, and I'm being told to be funny with him. my comedy is mainly reaction based. My comedy is things I say rather than things I do. I apologize.
No, I remember having a similar conversation with Cara Noir. I think he was asked to wrestle a match with Visage, and they were given, I think he was saying that it was very clear together that they were, the promoter or the audience were going to expect some of the sort of more some of the spots that those two characters are known for. And Cara Noir said straight away to Visage, we're not doing any of that. We're just going to go out there and absolutely kick kick the living hell out of each other and give them a really stiff, almost strong style match, just to completely upset expectations. And he said it was a great match. So I think, it's very interesting that, and this actually would be the question, is how often do you think you have to take control of your character from promoters? Like, how often do you have to kind of maybe think, well, I've been asked to do this, or I can see why they've put me in this situation, but I know that I need to do something different in order to turn that situation around for the Gene Munny character. Is that something that's happened?
Yeah, of course it is. So, like, fortunately, I get to work with a lot of promoters who are really good, and they'll just say, go out there and do your thing. And I can do my thing. That's fine. There are other times where people ask me to do something different. And I will talk with my opponent. I'll see what they do. And because at the end of the day, if I'm not 100% being my character, what's there to say that my opponent isn't being theirs? I want them to be the best so that I can also be the best in that match. We both need to be doing what we do as who we are. And if we're doing something else, we're putting in a subpar performance. And then it's just a case of saying to the promoter, I'm happy to do that. Absolutely. But, and then saying something else. And so long as it's not going to disrupt anything, so long as it's not going to add any time to the match, most people are very receptive to it. Now, there have been times in the past where I have done things promoters have asked me to. I've argued against it, and they've made me do it anyway, and the match has gone to shit. I'm not saying I know better. I'm just saying I know me, and I know what I can get reactions from. And I am happy to take on things and be proven wrong all of the time. I think being proven wrong is one of the greatest things we can do in this world because we learn. But when someone tries to dictate what your character does, unless I'm in a long-term storyline, then it can make sense. I know 1,000 different ways why Gene Munny would suddenly become a villain. But if one promotion said, all right, you're now a bad guy, I'd be like, I don't know about that. I don't think I am.
I'd be interested. It's actually something I was thinking about as I was watching these matches, was like, what would be the possibility for turning Gene was my thinking. And because for me, Gene is just intrinsically a face, and we laugh with you and we celebrate with you, and you can see that at the end of that Resurgence match with Brooks. Like, everyone got to their feet, were absolutely made up, even though they liked Brooks. It wasn't that they didn't like Brooks necessarily, even though Lycos was cheating and stuff like that. There was, it was two wrestlers that they really liked, kind of fighting up against each other. But even so, we really, really wanted Gene to win. And so after watching these matches, I was like, I wonder if there's any scope for Gene ever turning. And I couldn't see it, I have to say, but maybe there is. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. But it feels like such a kind of a warm and character that I just naturally adhere to. So I couldn't imagine it, but maybe you have imagined it.
I have. Oh, like I say, I've got 1,000 ways, and I'd tell you some now that would make sense in regards to storytelling. I think even if you look in real life right now, I mean, this probably won't happen anywhere for the next year or so, even maybe longer. I don't know when I'll be a villain or why. I got, 1,000 reasons. Maybe right now, as a performer, 2020 was supposed to be my year, technically. The fact is, I am in my 30s now. I've only just got my arse in gear. Opportunities aren't coming for me that very fast. Now they're not, especially with the Super Strong Style tournament I was supposed to be a part of. That was taken away from me. I was supposed to have Chris Brooks's last ever match at Progress back in February, but that got pulled away from me. We were essentially just going to do the exact same match we had at Resurgence because it was an absolute banger.
It was.
But it got taken away. And I think the fact with Gene is he's always the bridesmaid. When he has momentum, something always seems to stop him. Unfortunately, this time it's a pandemic, and I completely get it. But I think Gene can see young people moving up, like Ethan Allen's, like he's 18? Yeah, a kid like us too. Your Joe Nelson's, like these are all really young guys, and they're killing it on the scene. The fact is, Gene's almost twice their age. Like, I mean, I'm 31, but it's like Gene knows he'll need to take it seriously at some point, and maybe that'll be his way. Like
yeah, I can see that. I can see that now. When I used to
exactly.
About that, I'm like, yeah, cool.
The fact about Gene Munny is he's incredibly, he thinks he's funny and he loves all that. But like I say, he's a massive tryhard. He's completely insecure as a character. I think the whole story of Gene at Resurgence was he has this insecurity that a lot of people do, where he feels like he's not good enough, and that's why he wanted to defend the championship against the best people he could. That's why he had Rampage. That's why he had Brooks. And yeah, it's that level of insecurity that's going to drive him, where he's got that clock ticking in his head, where he's like, if I don't do something now, when will it ever come? Like, as a performer, I've never had a sniff of a tryout or anything like that. I'm working towards making wrestling my career. I want to be able to provide for my family and make this a career, but those opportunities don't come to me. So I can translate that into Gene. Maybe Gene wants to get noticed. Maybe Gene needs to do something maybe he knows what he's been doing for the last however many years hasn't been working, so he needs to change things. Like, there are a lot of natural ways Gene could become a villain, because there are a lot of natural ways anybody can become a villain. There's, it's the movie Falling Down. Like, anyone can have so many bad things happen that they snap. It's not even a snap. It can be a tactical decision.
I wonder if, just thinking with a view to, we've not got a huge amount of time left, but also picking up on that and tying it into maybe a conclusion. I wonder whether there was something in the match with Charlie Evans that you finished Resurgence with just before lockdown, because there was at that show, I think at the start of that match, the crowd were pretty much 50-50, if not maybe slightly your side. But actually, over the course of the match, it changed. It audibly changed throughout the audience, to the point where by the time you got to the back end of the match, the majority were behind Charlie, and they were anticipating and I think expecting or hoping at least for an Evans. Talk a little bit about, there were elements of you playing a heel in that match, some of the strikes to the face and things like that. So I wonder whether you could just talk into that match a little bit, and from that kind of standpoint.
Yeah, sure. So I think that was a sign that we'd done our job right, the fact that we were able to turn that tide, because if you notice, like, other than the punches, I don't think those punches would have had as much talk about them if I was in there with a Rampage or a Brooks, someone who was taller than me, like stature-wise. But because Chevs is shorter than me, intergender gets thrown around a lot, but I'd wrestle Chevs any day of the week. She's a phenomenal talent. And the fact is, yes, I am a large man, and if I was to punch her in the face dead on, like, regardless if she was male or female, that guy would go down. So a punch to the face, a full whack, is going to gain anyone's sympathy if they can come back from it. And yeah, I think because Gene had that kind of established nature that we talked about, that he was still the underdog, despite being the champion, despite having all of these defenses. But he tapped out in the match before it against Chevs. It didn't count story-wise. Like, it was after the bell and things like that, but Gene tapped out. He's now got something to prove, and yet doesn't have to fight up. So that is Gene on. I wouldn't call it heelish. I'd call it more aggressive. There's nothing I did technically in that match that I wouldn't do in any match with a bit more flavor, a bit more hip wiggling, a bit more comedy or anything like that. Like, Gene knew that there was someone out there who could make him tap, and he didn't want that to happen. And the easiest way to knock someone out is just a big old punch to the face. So, you know, again, he's insecure. If he's not allowed to have fun because he's not allowing himself to have fun because he's scared if he has fun, he's going to lose in this situation, he has to turn up that intensity. And maybe that is just Gene with the fun dialed down. Maybe he is just an aggressive man and, again, insecure.
I wonder, I think that just your description of that process, and then also thinking back through that match, I wonder whether you think that people maybe that are fresh to wrestling, or maybe that have watched wrestling but as a child or something like that, do people appreciate how many different kind of twists and turns and how much kind of nuance there can be to a wrestling match? Because that match had so many different layers to it, really, just in the way you were describing it.
I don't enjoy watching myself back that much, but I really enjoyed watching that match back because, we told a really nice little story there. And it was established from, like, her winning the Iron Woman and the match before with Shikara and Brooks. And it had a lot of really nice moments in there. And I think you could hear from the audience that if they didn't pick up on all of them, everyone picked up on everyone individually. I don't think there was a twist in there that no one got, or a turn in there that no one appreciated. I think everyone at some point understood what was in there. But I've never really thought about it like that. Much like me enjoying my own comedy, making myself giggle, I enjoy the stories I tell. And again, I got to watch it back and I enjoyed it. But I'm only thinking about me there. Like, the fans got it because the fans knew they were there for a fight. The fans knew they were there to watch this and potentially see a new champion. And they knew it was, what the odds were, what was at stake. Gene had never been pinned or submitted before, apart from the, show before, but it didn't count. Chevs has been on a roll, but, momentum's got to stop somewhere. I think...
I wonder, like, maybe Claire, if you're, as someone who we deliberately don't give a huge amount of information to when you're on commentary, watching a match like the match with Gene and Evans, and even the Brooks-Gene match as well, does this sort of, because you're there to sort of interpret what Gene and Evans are doing, and you picked up on a lot of those subtleties on commentary. So I wonder what your kind of experience was with that match and what you're kind of looking for, and do you kind of pick up on when you see those cues? Do those?
I think so. I think in that match, the cues were, like, I would say obvious, but I mean that in a really good way. Like, you could really feel them, and so you could, I think Joe and I on commentary were particularly kind of pointing, this is slightly different Gene from what we've seen before. Like, there's this sense all the way, like, there's an aggression here, and I think that was the story, that, like, rather than like it was heelish, it was more just like, wow, these two are really going for it, and it's really aggressive, and so for me it felt like a very fighty fight, if that's not a rubbishy sentence. Like,
no, I get that, and it's nice to see Gene in those situations, because usually that isn't expected from him. He's not the fighty fight person. He's
exactly,
shits and giggles.
Yeah, so I think that was what, it felt like for me it felt like a different atmosphere, and that's what I think you could pick up on, and I think that's what the crowd picked up on as well. Like, there was it wasn't just sort of the change was the change was around the atmosphere. It was around the actual atmosphere of the match. It felt different from the previous matches that Gene had. It felt really serious quite quickly, and so you really got you got a sense of the importance of it, I think, all the way through. Like, whenever we talk about Gene and the title, I think there's that sense all the way through that we're saying, this means the world to this guy. Like, we know how much this title means to him, and I think in that match with Charlie Evans, it came out in a kind of like, we're gonna have to go to war here, because we have to kind of fight. We have to fight this through, because it really does mean the world to us. I think and for me, there was lots of kind of lovely, kind of subtle moments, and not so subtle moments, where you could really feel that kind of an embodied sense, like in a properly embodied sense. Like when those punches were thrown, you really felt them, and you were like, wow, like this is. Like this has some real meaning behind it. So yeah, I think in that match, like we kind of, without really, as you say, Sam, like we there's lots of things that Joe and I know very little about. We quite like it that way, mainly because I as not a trained commentator in any way at all, I just like calling it as a fan because that's all I can do. Like it's all it's all I've got. All I've got is like, wow, that was cool. So that's how I call it. So and for me that match just had a totally kind of change in atmosphere, which I think really, really worked for it. Yeah.
That's good. Like, I think the thing with Gene is, I'm not sure if it came across, but in my head, Gene was that champion who said, basically, if someone can beat him for this championship, then they deserved it more than he did. Yeah. He was honest like that. He knew he's mortal. He knows that, maybe not everyone sees him as the champion, but he wants to prove that he deserves this. And if he doesn't, then he's happy to lose the championship because he knows he never deserved it properly. And I think that's what happened with the match with sorry, I'm just putting a pair of shorts on. I think that's what happened with the match with Chevs, that he was he'd been proven that he almost didn't deserve this the month before when he lost against when he won but tapped out against Chevs and Brooks. There's a subtle inkling in his mind that this can be taken away from him, and maybe this one person deserves it more than him. And I think he said it out loud so much to himself that, I want to, if anyone can beat me, then they deserve this. But it had never actually happened. It had never come into reality until the January thing. So he's got to be more aggressive because he's realized what he's got might not be enough. And the fact is, like you said, the championship meant the world to him, and he's not willing to let go yet.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we're at a time limit here, I think.
I've got to shoot soon.
We didn't predict that this would be the eve of lockdown when we made this date to arrange this conversation. But
yeah, I have my last ever gym session. I'm going to hit my new PB on bench today.
Good job.
I think I've been watching quite a lot of MasterChef recently, and there's a Greg Wallace quote along the lines of, I've lost some weight, it's time to get fat again. And I kind of feel like that's going to sum up my lockdown too.
Well, 2021 has got some big moments in store for me and Gene. So I wish I could give myself the ability to get fat right now. Like my aim in wrestling is to earn enough money that I can retire or take a managerial role or an agenting role, and then just eat myself to death. Because I love food so much. I love cooking. I love eating other people's cooking. It's but I can't allow myself to do that until I've got some financial stability via my craft.
One really final quick question.
Go for it.
First match back, who's your ideal opponent if you could pick anyone?
I think I actually know who my first match back is, so this has skewed it. But if I was to wrestle anyone, I would love to wrestle Brooks again. It's a really cheap cop-out answer, but we never got our send-off match before he went to Japan, one-on-one. I wrestled him as a clown, I guess, and we fought in the streets. That was fun. But he's been wrestling on the reg out in Japan, and I have been constantly training with just an itch to lariat something. And I would love to be in the opportunity to say, because it's that divide. Like, I've not been wrestling, so
it's Rocky IV, right?
It goes
like it's Rocky IV. It's like Rocky versus what's his, like the Russian guy. Like, he's been training out there and being like, and you're like, doing kind of hitting things in your garage and stuff like that. It's a good story. I like it.
Absolutely. And like, I'd love to, even from like a personal level, not just a storyline level, I would love to see how far he's gone and how far I've receded because of lockdown in the ring. Just so it's that measuring stick, and I can learn, try and learn what he's learned out there, and at the same time I'd be able to throw in my new stuff. Right now I feel like a completely different wrestler to who I was 6 months ago. I have changed my style, I have changed my look, I have changed the way I do things, the way I move is completely different. I think people are genuinely going to be quite shocked and surprised in a positive way when they see the new Gene Munny in the ring, because the big boy pants and all that lot is still going to be there, but I'm a different performer now, and I am genuinely excited to show the world that.
Awesome.
That sounds fascinating, and I would love to be there when that first match comes back. So hopefully it's not going to be too long.
Our fingers crossed, eh?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, it was lovely chatting to you this evening.
Yeah, you guys as well.
Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, great to chat to you. Look forward to catching up soon.
Yeah. Have a good evening, guys. Pleasure seeing you.
Yeah, we will.
You too.
See you later.
Bye. Bye.
See ya.
How do I leave this thing? There we go. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Should totally leave that bit at the end on.
Yeah, that's not as good as Shikara's last time. But
No, not quite. But you do get, in that one, you did get Gene making dinner and putting on shorts. So those are two things we've not had before. So that's quite exciting.
Grappling arts firsts.